Sorry about that, guys. That was weird. I don't know what happened there. Bad connection. But anyway, overall, how was Russell Wilson's training camp on day 2? I'm going to actually give the stream just a minute for some of you guys to flow back in here because I know that rough connection definitely was a problem here, and it looks like we're still experiencing some connection issues, which is not great. Oh boy. All right, guys. So I'm just giving a couple seconds here for people to start streaming back into the stream here. All right, what is going on? Sorry about this, guys. I really do apologize. Okay, there we go. I think we should be good. All right. So, how was the day for Russell Wilson on day 3 of Denver Broncos training camp? Overall, after having a fairly rough day on day 1, I felt like Russell Wilson definitely had a redemptive bounce back day. Although it was far from perfect, it definitely was much cleaner, much crisper execution. It looked like Russell Wilson was getting more and more comfortable in this Sean Payton offense and with what Sean Payton was asking him to do. That said, some of the problems that were there yesterday in terms of Russell Wilson's hesitancy to pull the trigger and Russell Wilson's hesitancy to throw the ball, that was one issue that was still there from yesterday's training camp. He did have a couple of plays that I felt like could have gone better for him. I'll go through it basically play by play here for Russell Wilson. He made some really, really nice tight window throws today. I will definitely say that. He zipped it right into the void and zone coverage on the first play of 7-on-7s to a wide open Samaje Perine on what appeared to be a wheel route. It was a really, really nice throw from Russell Wilson. A good way to get some confidence built for him, and it was a really, really nice day. A really, really nice way for him to start the day overall. His next play that I wanted to talk about was a really, really well-placed go ball from Jerry Jeudy, but it ended up being textbook, and I mean textbook coverage from Pat Surtain. He got the PBU on that play. Pat Surtain versus Jerry Jeudy is a battle that we're going to have to really keep an eye on throughout training camp, just like last year. Pat Surtain was all over people last year, and this year, Pat Surtain has gotten a couple on Jeudy, but Jeudy has also gotten a couple on him as well. So, overall, man, that's been a really, really fun battle over the past couple of days, is Jerry Jeudy and Pat Surtain. So, I also thought that Russell Wilson delivered a really, really nice, accurate strike to Jerry Jeudy on what appeared to be an out route or a crossing route. I didn't exactly have the best vantage point from where I was, but what I did see was that it was a really, really good throw with nice tight coverage from Essane Bassi. So that's something that you definitely like to see from Russell Wilson. And then there were some negative plays from Russell Wilson as well that I want to talk about. He missed a wide open receiver over the middle, and he ended up getting to his check down, but he got to his check down late, and the ball ended up getting batted down by Nick Benito. Nick Benito had a really, really nice day today, and that batted ball was one big play that he made. Russell Wilson also did, once again, hold on to the ball too long a couple of times. He had a deep connection to Courtland Sutton by stepping up in the pocket, but it appeared that the pressure would have gotten home from, I believe it was once again Nick Benito in a actual real game situation. And so that would have been a sack in a real game. That's what I have it marked down as here as a sack. We got Jess in the house. We got one of our mods, an excellent friend of the show. Absolutely love the support you've been showing me in all the videos, Jess. Thank you so, so much. And be sure to leave a like on this stream, guys, while you're at it. It's a free and easy way to show your support. Helps tell YouTube's algorithm to push us out and helps us get seen by more and more members of Broncos country, just like you and me. All right, so going back to Russell Wilson on that sack, it was once again just him holding on to the ball too long, it felt like. He stepped up in the pocket because it was a regulated training camp situation with simulated pressure, and he knew he wasn't going to get hit, and ultimately found Cortland Sutton deep downfield. Truth be told, he's out for personal reasons right now. Our right tackle, Mike McGlinchey, who has not been participating in the past couple of days of Denver Broncos training camp. On day one, both of our tackles were actually out in Garrett Bowles and Mike McGlinchey, but we did see Garrett Bowles return, and Cam Fleming returned as well. He's been trying to get back into football shape after spending some time on the free agent market and on the streets. So on day one of training camp, we saw Christian DeLauro start at right tackle, and we saw we saw Christian DeLauro start at left tackle, and we saw Isaiah Prince start at right tackle. Good evening, truth be told. I really hope you are doing well. We got D-Rock in the house as well. Thank you guys so much for coming in. Really, really appreciate it. So, once again, overall, there was plenty for Russell Wilson to improve on today, but it was much crisper, cleaner execution, and overall just a much better day from him. You can see that he's getting more comfortable with what Sean Payton is asking him to do. It's very much an offense that's predicated on the quick game, one or two reads. If it isn't there, don't be afraid to tuck it and run. Don't want to force anything downfield. That's the last thing that we want to do. Russell Wilson was prone to making those mistakes. And one thing I will say, Russell Wilson is running with confidence and swagger again, like we saw him move around in Seattle. He's got like that burst and that twitch back. Now, granted, the team is not going at full speed. The defense is not going out at full speed. And overall, Russell Wilson, again, though, he just looks like a much more confident player just in terms of running the football and not being able to scramble, because it was a lot more hesitancy last year, and we're not seeing that this year. If there is hesitancy to throw downfield, he's not afraid to tuck it down and scramble, which is really great to see. And Russell Wilson is definitely looking quicker, truth be told. Absolutely, that is a great observation. He did drop some weight, so he's got some of that twitch in the pocket back, some of that burst, some of that explosiveness like we saw in Seattle, but it's never going to be quite like prime Russell Wilson from, say, 5, 6, 7 years ago, because Russell Wilson is unfortunately on the wrong side of 30, but he can definitely be an impact player. But I do feel like Russell Wilson is not going to be the same player just in terms of mobility that he was 5 or 6 years ago. So enough on Russell Wilson. Let's get into the main topic of today's podcast, and that is Javonte Williams. I cannot begin to express how impressed I am with Javonte Williams, just how far he has come in his rehab and his recovery, man. He took the first carry on 11-on-11 drills yesterday, and he had a really, really nice play where he sort of slipped down at first, and a lot of running backs would have basically given up on the run at that point, and they would have just fallen to the ground. But not Pookie. He had the confidence to make a cut back on his knee and recovered and ended up bursting for what would have been a probably really long gain in a real game situation. And we saw a very similar play to that today. That burst, that shiftiness from Javonte Williams, I don't know how it's at this point all the way back. It feels like Javonte Williams is almost at 100%. Now, of course, he's not at 100%. He's still wearing that big bulky brace on his knee and is still learning how to trust his knee and what he can and can't get away with, essentially. But, man, Javonte Williams, I cannot believe just how good he looks and how far he's come at this point in his recovery. And Samaje Perine has also looked really good at the running back position. So if we've got both of these guys healthy and on the field, then we've got a dynamic duo there. Javonte Williams was taking pretty much the lion's share of the carries today. Samaje Perine would spell him in 11-on-11 situations. Now, granted, today was a bit of a slower ramp-up day at camp. There was a lot of 7-on-7 drills, there was a lot of individual drills, there was a lot of special teams drills, that kind of thing, just trying to hone in on basic technique and fundamentals and all that kind of stuff. So we only got 1 hour of actual 7-on-7 and 11-on-11 periods today, but in those practices, Javonte Williams took the lion's share of the carries, which was incredible to see with the first team. And again, Samaje Perine looked incredible as well. Has some really nice burst, explosiveness, and vision to him. Makes some really, really speedy cuts, and is just a power bruising runner that I can't wait to see once we get the pads on and we can actually get some contact on him. And I got a feeling he's going to be forklifting guys and throwing guys around and just grinding through them. Samaje Perine is a tough, physical, nasty runner, but also has some shiftiness and some explosiveness in his game as well. So keep an eye out on Samaje Perine if you guys get out to training camp or in the preseason if you can't make it out to camp. We finally found a badass coach, truth be told, says. Absolutely, and you can see that just the way that Sean Payton has command of practice, has command of the whole operation. It's a tight-run ship. Sean walks around there strutting his stuff. There's no missing Sean Payton if you're out there at training camp. He's the first one that you'll see out there, and there's no doubt about it. He is the one who is running the show, calling all the shots out there. He's the top dog, head drill sergeant, whatever you want to call it. This is Sean Payton's practice through and through. So, going back to the running back conversation, besides Samaje Perine and Javonte Williams, Tony Jones Jr., who was brought in as a free agent from the New Orleans Saints, has that familiarity with Sean Payton. He was utilized quite heavily with the second string offense. So I feel like Tony Jones Jr. is pretty much slated to be the backup power runner, if you will, behind Samaje Perine and Javonte Williams. And Tony Jones, I've been really impressed with his production on offense. When we brought him in, I was not anticipating him being much more than a special teams player, honestly. But ever since Tony Jones has gotten in, he has showcased why he deserves to be utilized, at least in a rotational capacity in the backfield. But also, we have to keep an eye on the battle for the speedy, explosive rotational back, and I feel like that's going to be Jaleel McLaughlin or Tyler Beatty, and it's a neck-and-neck battle right now between McLaughlin and Beatty. Both of them have elite top-level speed. They are the fastest player on the field whenever any one of them is on the field. I know that Jaleel McLaughlin really wants that job, but I also know that Tyler Beatty is not going to give that job up very easily. So keep an eye out on the battle between Jaleel McLaughlin and Tyler Beatty, man. I mean, both of them have elite level speed. Jaleel McLaughlin, for an undrafted free agent, has really nice vision. He is a guy that if he finds just a small little crease or a small little hole, he's gone. He can dip underneath defenders. He's just so slippery and elusive. I really cannot wait to see Jaleel McLaughlin as well with the pads on. And Tyler Beatty, again, is not going to give that job up without a fight. So throughout preseason, the big battle to keep an eye on is going to be Jaleel McLaughlin versus Tyler Beatty. So moving on to the defensive side of the ball, I got some very interesting notes here as we were going into the early period, because before practice really got underway, they were doing some walkthrough stuff, then they got into stretches, then they got into individual drills, and then 7-on-7s and all that stuff. But when they were going into walkthroughs, they were mixing up some of their personnel groupings on defense. For example, they had Elijah Garcia and PJ Mustipher, two defensive linemen, running with the first and second team field in walkthrough period, while they had Matt Henningsen, who has previously taken reps with the first and second team throughout the first couple of days of camp when the media was only the ones that were allowed in, and yesterday as well when the fans were allowed in. And so you can see that Sean Payton and Vance Joseph are trying to mix up their combinations on this defensive line to try to see what is the best personnel fit for them. And that is something that I am 100% all for. Now, I would also like to make a note that Sean Payton talked about Shelby Harris today in his press conference, and he said that the team is currently happy with where they are at depth on their defensive line. So Right now, any talks of Shelby Harris potentially returning to the Denver Broncos unfortunately have to be tabled. Sean Payton says that the team is happy with their depth at the defensive line. I personally feel like the team needs to add another body there. We have gotten some really good play out of guys like Jonathan Harris, Matt Henningsen, even though at points he was running with the threes today, and then PJ Mustipher, Elijah Garcia as well. Those guys have stepped up in a really large capacity, and I do feel a lot better about the defensive line, but at the same time, I want us to add some more bodies there just in case we have an injury at that position, because we have a lot of Robins on our defensive line, but aside from Zach Allen, I don't really know if we have a Batman, and we need two Batmans up there at defensive end. I'm not counting DJ Jones, who's mostly a defensive tackle. I'm counting the two DN spots. We need two Batmans there. And I feel like we got one Batman, certainly in Zach Allen, who continues to stand out at camp, but we need another Batman alongside of him, and that's what I feel like Shelby Harris could have been for the Denver Broncos. Now, Zach Allen, we touched on him very briefly, man. He continues to just be an absolute freaking dog in training camp. Jess comes in and says, Jets, or D-Rock says, Jets just in the season, and Jet says, I had the same impression, Truth. Gage is low-key goated for his football acumen. I really appreciate that. And I've never played a down of football in my life. I've never coached a down of football in my life. I'm just somebody who has watched a lot of football-related content over the years, watched the game for a number of years, and I've just tried to absorb as much information about X's and O's as I can, and I'm still learning every single day about this game of football. I mean, it's a really, really intricate, complicated game, and there's stuff out there that I am out looking at, and I'm just absolutely confused about what's going on. So it's very much a learning process, trying to develop as much baseline knowledge as you can about this game, and it's a daily learning process that will continue for the rest of my life, quite frankly. And that's what I love so much about this game, is it brings you something to learn every single day. So going back in to Zach Allen, man, he continues to just feast on this first-team offensive line. Ben Powers, he's had a really strong camp, but Zach Allen's manhandled him a couple of times. Same with Quinn Miners. Lloyd Cushenberry, I will say, has looked comparatively strong. I'm impressed with Lloyd Cushenberry. It looks like he's hit the weight room a little bit and looks a lot more polished as a center. I can't believe I'm actually saying that as one of Lloyd Cushenberry's previous harshest critics, but we're not going to know truly how the offensive line is looking until the pads come on. But Zach Allen just looks like an absolute heat-seeking missile out there with just a speed and burst off the line of scrimmage. He was in the backfield on multiple plays. I mean, this dude is just an absolute freak of nature, and I'm really excited to see Zach Allen in game situations because he can be a true game wrecker on the interior defensive line. And that's something that I feel like our team has not had in a very long time. So moving on to a couple of younger edge rushers that I feel like stood out today. Thomas Incoom, the undrafted free agent, had a hell of a play today where he blew up Tony Jones Jr. off the edge. I believe it was an outside zone run to the left. And right there to blow it up was Thomas Incoom. And although there isn't much contact right now, Thomas Incoom didn't really have much regard for that rule, and he laid the wood on Tony Jones Jr. So Thomas Incoom's a guy that has that physicality and that nastiness to his game. And although the Denver Broncos had a lot of depth just in terms of bodies at the edge rush spot, man, Thomas Incoom might be a guy that could easily find himself a role in the practice squad. He's got that dog mentality, man. I really like what I've seen out of Thomas Incoom. And Nick Bonito as well, Broncos' second-round pick from last season out of Oklahoma, who had a very much up and down rookie season. He struggled to get on the field much, and when he did, he looked like a bit of a raw player out there. He was really impressive today. He beat Bowles flat out on a couple of reps in 11-on-11 drills, and he also had that batted ball from Russell Wilson. I was really impressed with Nick Bonito, and I'm hoping that he can carry that production over into the preseason. Oh man, I'm really, really impressed with how this defense has looked. And that's the nature of training camp. Offense is always going to be rusty to start off, so defense is going to really dominate for the first couple of days. But the defense has just looked so good, man. And that's how the defense looked last year. Vance Joseph is doing a really good job with this unit just based on what I've seen so far. Jess says, I think all vets are leveling up their game for Sean P. Leadership influence can't be underestimated. Absolutely, I agree. And I feel like you can see that. There are guys out there who will acknowledge their mistakes right on the spot. Kendall Hinton today, who I feel like has had a tough training camp, he muffed a punt. And right when he muffed a punt, he dropped and did 10 push-ups. I don't think you'll ever see anybody do that under Nathaniel Hackett during Camp Cupcake last season. I mean, this the discipline that you can see the players have under Sean Payton, the overall urgency that the practices have to them, I cannot even begin to express the night and day vibe from Nathaniel Hackett's practices to Sean Payton's practices. Every other day, we saw Nathaniel Hackett pretty much doing these jog-through practices because he didn't want to get veterans hurt. And it caused us to be not prepared for the regular season. Sean Payton is not going to allow that to happen. He's going to make sure that this team is prepared for every single situation that is being thrown at them. It's a lot of situational drills and a lot of stuff like that because you want to make sure that you are not ill prepared going into the season. So overall, man, I'm so just blown away at how bad things were last year under Nathaniel Hackett. I didn't realize at the time just how ill-structured those practices were, and there were a lot of red flags that I missed in Nathaniel Hackett's practices last year that now looking back with hindsight, it's like, oh man, this is why the team was not ready to go going into that Seattle game. So another guy who continues to ball out on defense is Jaquan McMillan. He was an undrafted free agent last season who, as I mentioned yesterday, someone I initially saw as more of a slot corner or a nickel, but he's been getting reps as the main number 2 boundary corner spot, the main backup to Damari Mathis. So he's been really sensational. Has had a couple of PBUs. He's been really solid and tacky in coverage. Jaquan McMillan continues to showcase that he's got a chance to make a role on this offense. Jess says, keep an eye out for Truth comments. They're putting out some good ones. Just in the season, you give those ESPN mooks a run for their money. I appreciate that. I really do. And I'm just sharing my passion for this game with everyone else. I really, I love the game of football so much. It's basically my entire life. So I'm so happy I found this outlet and this platform to express my love and appreciation for this game of football. Truth says, we are at fault. We all wanted so bad for Nathaniel Hackett to be our savior. We did. We absolutely did, especially coming off of Vic Fangio, who grew who had a very strong sense with the fan base once we got to the end of his tenure here. There was a lot of apathy towards Vic Fangio, a lot of harsh feelings towards Vic Fangio, and we all thought that Nathaniel Hackett coming in here with his very positive, upbeat attitude would be the antithesis of Vic Fangio, and that we all thought that's what this team needed. But ultimately, Nathaniel Hackett was in way over his head, and the results were just disastrous for the Denver Broncos last year. I got a strong feeling we won't see that level of disaster this season. So finally, moving into the topic that I know everybody is excited to hear about, and that is the Denver Broncos kicking competition. So we finally got a chance to see for the first time Brett Maher versus Elliott Fry. Brett Maher, in my opinion, won the day, but Fry also looked good. They both made several long-distance kicks, and they were both really accurate overall. I believe there was only one missed kick today, and it was from Elliott Fry from like 58 yards or something along those lines. And with Brett Maher, you could just see the raw leg strength with him. it was absolutely insane. They had the field goal post set up right by the Denver Broncos giant radio tower that they have over there at Centura Health Training Center. And they had a trainer standing at the very top. When Brett Maher would kick his field goals, they would land right in the hands of the trainer. Now, Elliott Fry's field goals would go over the head of the trainer, so he also had some natural leg strength, but Brett Maher showcased the accuracy with his kicks on that drill. So right now, Brett Maher is certainly the favorite to win the Denver Broncos kicking job, and he's somebody that if he gets over the yips that he had with the Dallas Cowboys in the playoffs in that Tampa Bay Buccaneers game, then I feel like he could be a massive kicking weapon for us in this mile-high altitude. Some final notes here. On punt return, it looks like Montrell Washington is going to seize up that job. He has had the best hands out there. It's going to be really interesting to see how he plays once we get into live game speed in the preseason to make sure that the vision is improved and all that stuff, because there were times where he could have continued to return a punt, but he decided to fair catch it, and that was one of my biggest issues with Montrell Washington last year. But I feel like that there's a chance that he's cleaned that up. We won't know 100% for sure until we get into the preseason in live game situations. But right now, Montrell Washington is getting the lion's share of the punt return reps. So I feel like unless something crazy changes, or like Jaleel McLaughlin secures that job or whatever, then the punt return job is Montrell Washington's to lose. Unfortunately, one fan favorite for the Denver Broncos that I feel like may be in danger of not making the roster is Kendall Hinton. Kendall Hinton, unfortunately, has had a pretty rough camp. Yesterday, I can't remember if it was Russell Wilson or Jarrett Stidham. I think it was Wilson put a slant route right in the breadbasket, right in the numbers of Kendall Hinton, and he did not catch it. It was a rough drop, a really rough drop from him, and he just kind of looked mentally dejected afterwards. Then today, he had another muffed punt, or actually he had two of them. So Kendall Hinton right now was a guy that I said earlier this week was going to have to make a strong impression on this coaching staff to carve a spot for him on the roster. And unfortunately, to this point, he hasn't done that. And as Truth Be Told says here, this looks like Hinton is on the outside looking in. And that's very unfortunate because I know the fans really love Kendall Hinton. I love Kendall Hinton. He's a Hall of Fame quarterback, stepped in a really rough situation and held his own. But he's the ultimate team guy. You can't say enough about Kendall Hinton as a person. Unfortunately, it looks like the matter of numbers is going to get Kendall Hinton on the outside looking in. All right, Broncos country, before we dip out of here, do you guys have any questions about training camp? Tomorrow is going to be an off day for the Broncos, but we will be back out at Dove Valley at Centura Health Training Center on Monday, July 31st, and that is day one of pads, guys. So I'm so excited to finally get a look at the offensive line with pads on, at the run game with pads on, get to see how Zach Allen flies around the field with pads on. We get a true look at how this team is going to fare this season once the pads come on. And there are going to be a lot more padded practices this year with Sean Payton than there were last season under Nathaniel Hackett. I can absolutely guarantee you that. All right, Broncos country, I'm going to go ahead and dip out of here. I'm going to be so excited to be out there to see the pads come on Monday. Truth be told, what's the scoop on Sanders? Thank you. I cannot believe I did not talk about Drew Sanders in this. I just released a video on Drew Sanders right before I went live. Dude, Drew Sanders is a freak. He is a dog. He is a man amongst boys. He is a nightmare for offenses. The dude is all over the field. He's got just incredible football IQ for a rookie. He looks like a veteran out there. He's in a league of his own as far as the rookies are concerned, man. Definitely excited for Drew Sanders. And I talked about how he could potentially be forcing Josie Jewell out the door in my video. So I'm going to push you guys over there because I want to get engagement on that video. So be sure to go check that out, and you can hear more and more of my thoughts on Drew Sanders. D-Rock says, update on Tim Patrick. How's he looking? Timmy P is looking good, man. Timmy P is definitely looking good. He looks like he is getting more and more confident and comfortable with his knee as time goes on. That chemistry with Russell Wilson that was there last year is starting to develop once again this year. Good night, Truth. Thank you so much for coming in. Really appreciate it. So Tim Patrick is starting to become a lot more confident and comfortable with his knee, and that chemistry with Russell Wilson is starting to develop again. They've had some really nice connections together, so really excited for Timmy P's outlook this season. He looks really good. Jess asked, who was signing autographs post-camp? Russ obviously was, Javonte Williams, Garrett Bowles, Drew Sanders. I gotta be honest, like during autograph signings, that's when I'm usually dipping out of there. I do my little post-practice recap as they're breaking down the huddle, and then I dip out of there because I live only a few minutes away from Dove Valley, so I want to get home as soon as I can to get that post-game recap uploaded. So I haven't really paid attention to the autographs, but that's something I will definitely pay attention to on Monday for you, Jess. All right, guys, I'm going to dip out of here. And until next time, Broncos country, you guys have a great night, and we will see you on Monday. I am your host, Gage Madrid, saying peace out.